Welcome back to another episode of the Caffeinated Librarians. Ben has been replaced for an episode with our special guest, Laura.
Yay!
No pressure or anything.
I'm not going to be able to do Ben justice.
Before we jump into our topic for the day, I know Lewis has an announcement to make that is for the viewers and Mayapack patrons.
We are closing the library because of construction. Our last day open will be Saturday, September 3rd. We'll be closed for a week after that, after Labor Day. And then we have an alternate site opening up at 906 Route 6, Mayapack, where you can pick up holds, come for tech help, pick up print jobs, stuff like that. So any other questions, you can give us a call. 845-628-2009. Extension 100. Yeah. I feel very watched right now.
I'm sure it's a very important announcement.
It is a very important announcement.
And some of us are still confused.
Yeah.
Well,
Like me.
more information is going to be forthcoming. There will be an e-newsletter being sent out. There will be flyers. We have bookmarks at the
Facebook,
reference
Instagram
desk.
posts.
Will be updates on all our social media pages and everything, so no one will be left in the dark regarding the changes that are occurring.
The podcasts will also still continue.
Yes. Which
And-
I think is the most important aspect
Yeah.
of this entire project.
Maybe even more so. Maybe we'll even be able to record more often
Yes.
now that we'll be closing our doors for a little bit.
I'm suspending it, sorry.
And Amanda, Labor Day is September 5th, I believe.
It is.
Just so you know.
holiday for me. I forget that holiday exists.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, today's topic is Netflix put out a new show that everyone's talking about. It's remained number one in its spot since its release. I forget how many countries it's still number one in at this point.
According to Netflix stats.
According to Netflix stats. Neil Gaiman's The Sandman, a cult classic comic made reality, which is ironic too. So, I've always been a fan of the Sandman comics. It was actually my first thing I checked out here at the Mayapack Public Library.
Very cool.
I used to visit, and it was one of those ones where I actually checked it out, read it, had a good time, made notes. Became
You made
one of
notes?
I like to make notes when I'm reading sometimes about to
In
help
the
understand.
book itself, right? And then you return.
No.
Dog ear the pages you like the best. Highlight everything.
The Sandman comic is a very prolific one as well, not only going to its overture ending, but also going into side stories revolving like death. There's like 2 children's books. I have those. The Endless Storybooks. Super cute. Going into the House of Secrets, Black Orchid, a lot of works that Neil Gaiman has done for graphic novels as well. So, and it also bleeds into the DC universe with characters like John Constantine, which we will get into in this episode, as well as Dr. Destiny, who is kind of minor in this whole thing, but he's still technically the supervillain from the DC comic books, and also the Sandman superhero, which I actually have a comic of.
Was Dr. Destiny in the show at
I
all?
was going to say.
Yes, he was.
He was,
John.
What's his name? We were just talking about him the other day.
He's the guy who has the gem. John.
The guy from...
Oh, the guy from Fargo?
Lupin, yeah.
Oh, that's
Lupin.
Dr. Destiny?
Yeah.
He's supposed to be Dr. Destiny.
What's his
yes.
name?
Although his comic book
David
kind of were his.
Thewlis, yes.
Yeah.
Oh. He was phenomenal.
He was in Dinotopia. I'll always bring it up. That's how I know him.
Utopia. Wow.
There was this old, like, early 2000s, like, series based on a children's book series called Dinotopia.
I had that book.
None of the actors mention it in their career, but I remember. He was in it. He was the bad guy.
Oh, interesting.
So was the guy from Prison Break. I think one of the guys from Prison Break was in it, too. I'm like,
I never
see
watched
your
that.
career from here.
Everyone has to get their start somewhere.
Yes.
Do a few projects they'd rather not mention.
So without further ado, I I'm going to save my opinions until I hear everybody else's, because since I feel like I've read the comics more than, like, I did watch the show. I feel like I have a difference of opinion when it comes to just watching it as a show. So I'd like to hear your guys' reactions first, too.
Should we start with our guest?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I have to put on the spot. It was interesting. I didn't read the comics, so this is my first, experience with it. It was interesting to hear you kind of talk about everything, because I do definitely feel like I got dropped in the middle of this fabric of a whole other world, and there's no real start or end, and that there were tangents that I hope to someday learn about.
Well, I'm here for some clarity.
Yes,
At least as far as this season is pertained.
One of the things
Just wipe it, yeah.
One of the things that was strange to me is the pace of it is so much slower than anything I've been watching like recently, but it didn't bother me. Like I kind of enjoyed that, and somehow on some level maybe it sort of felt almost dreamlike for me in that regard. I also found it to be, and we were talking about it, like visually beautiful. And for me, just right out of the gate, that aerial shot of them showing Morpheus in the circle, and he's naked, and just he looks bird-like and fragile and vulnerable to me. And that was, I think that was the part where I was like, oh, I'm watching this. So I really enjoyed it, and I didn't really expect to. Yeah.
The actor was talking, the one who plays the Sandman, said
Morpheus.
that was his first day of shooting. He says, so I had to disrobe, he says, and climb awkwardly into a glass globe. He says, he didn't know anyone really on the set at that point. But that was his first scene ever where he had to be naked and climb into a, so he was saying how I felt so embarrassed and awkward.
What was with his hair?
So his hair kind of changes. So the way the comic books present Morpheus is he's very pale, very tall,
Well, they got the pale
they
part
did his
right.
hair properly. It's
Yeah.
weird because sometimes it looks longer, sometimes it looks higher, but it's always crazy. It looks like something out of a Tim Burton movie where his hair is just constantly just doing its own thing.
Sometimes I was flock of seagulls. Is
Yeah.
what I was feeling a little.
Yeah, well, he wanted to go all out. Like, he really wanted to be ghostly pale. Like, the actor said he wanted to really go to town.
All of the Endless are supposed to be like basically ghostly pale.
Yeah.
In their presentation, because they're supposed to be otherworldly. They're not human.
But I still think he captured that
He did a very good job.
without having to really go all the way. And I even like the way he speaks, the way he changes his voice, the way he sounds almost as if he's on the verge of just falling asleep, almost as if words are too much for him at that point. That's how I understand it.
I kind of loved his voice.
His voice is beautiful.
Agreed.
When he was narrating it, I was like, this guy's got the deepest, coolest voice in the world. And then when you saw him, I was like, oh, that's coming from him?
If I could set my Siri voice to be his voice, I would be very happy.
Oh, yeah. I think I'd fall asleep,
Yes,
though.
yeah.
That's
They
the only
recently
problem.
put out the audiobook for the comics.
Is he reading it?
online? No, I think it's James McAvoy who's
wow.
doing it.
You know.
He's good, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm trying to find out who the voice actor is.
Yeah, well, one of...
James McAvoy.
Oh, it is. Oh,
And a bunch of other celebrities.
Cool.
ooh, cool. One of my... So with regards to the show, the first half I felt was more engaging than the second half. I wasn't too invested in Rose Walker or her story. And I don't know whether that was the actress. I didn't feel any connection. Like, it was... Whenever she was on screen, I found it kind of dull. Like, I was like, okay, just... Let's go back to, like, the Corinthian. Let me see the serial killers and their... Which... Can we talk about the serial killer convention?
I was so happy they put it in there and they kept Funland's outfit. I was like, just hat.
But at first it didn't register. It's like, why are they calling it the serial convention? And then, like, I had my duh moment. No, honestly, like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, duh, they're serial killers. Okay, moving on, Simona.
But they can't just outright say that they're, it's like SERI.
Yeah, no, like, I got that. Like, I got, like, they can't be blatant, like, we're gonna get together.
Like a murder festival, yeah.
But I do like that idea because it makes you wonder how many conventions like you think are innocuous, like the serial convention, and every serial killer has decided to get together and share their experiences. Like I liked when
They're not serial killers; they're collectors.
That's
Right, exactly.
yeah, when I'm sorry, what's the
Loosely.
It's very interesting.
what's the entity that it's basically this the lush garden? I'm sorry, what's his?
Oh, Fiddler's Green.
When Fiddler's
He
Green
was great.
is walking
I liked him,
through
too.
each like
Did you guys guess
subset.
that?
Of
He
course.
was Fiddler's Green.
Yeah, it was pretty
Oh, I
obvious.
didn't.
Oh, maybe it wasn't that obvious.
No, but maybe I just wasn't paying attention. It's possible. But when he's going through each like subset of the convention, so you have
That's
the
so great.
the female serial killers. Like, let's talk about the respect we don't get for.
They
the-
think
I-
that we're getting away with it because of our feminine
I
wiles,
liked
but it's not what it
how
is.
when he walked into that too, he was like, "Yeah, you go, girls."
He's all about learning and learning the human experience. So, but then he realizes slowly, he's just like,
yes.
it's starting to get a little bit. The
Like,
religion
oh.
one got me.
The religion
I
one
love
was
that
so
one.
funny. Like I like when one guy's saying how, and I do it for God, and one says, "I'd like to separate myself from this religious zealot,"
It's
and I was like,
it's like I don't choose to kill people.
God
tells
does.
me who to kill.
So those were moments that were brilliant as he slowly goes from each, and he really starts to understand, okay, something isn't right. You know, that was a great moment. But I had another aha moment. I'm jumping towards the end. When Rose's grandmother, Unity Kincaid, comes into the dreaming and she tells Rose to reach inside of her and grab what makes her the vortex. When she pulled out the crystal heart, I was like, because I realized whose sigil that is, and it dawned on me like where the connection was between Desire and their plan for this whole thing. When I saw their heart sigil, I was like, that is amazing.
So you'll learn later on. I know they teased what the next one's going to be. It's going to be everyone's favorite because it is everyone's favorite story in the Sandman, which is the third book in the whole series, and what Lucifer has planned. I won't spoil it for those who, but Desire will play bigger roles. If you noticed in this season, when he does go to hell, there's a woman in a cage, or a woman imprisoned, and she reaches out to Morpheus.
Oh,
And
yes.
There's a whole story with that one, and it's kind of Desire's fault. Kind of Morpheus's fault as well, because he's very childish and self-centered and doesn't quite understand humans. He doesn't really take the time to try.
No, he doesn't.
He kind of has his dream realm, and that's his job. It's not his job to understand.
I have a question about
Yes.
that. So I've been trying to figure out like why is it that Morpheus ends up in the circle and not Death, and like why the plot maybe like that notion. I kind of feel like during this whole during each episode, he kind of was going on this learning process, and it kind of makes me wonder. Like I started to also recognize that some are older than the others. Like Death is older than he is, and I think is he older than Destiny?
I think so. So there are a couple of them. You're not going to meet them right away in the next series, I assume, because it sounds like they're going 2 books at a time. You will meet the rest because they do have these family dinners.
Gotcha.
And so you will meet Destiny, who
They don't seem to like each other though.
That's not true. So one is missing. If you
Right,
notice, they
the
talk about the prodigal,
Right,
who is
who's-
destruction.
Yeah.
Is ultimately what he is. And he, has kind of left. If you notice the sigils on the wall, that's how they all communicate, is they say the line, which I love that they stayed accurate to a lot of the lines from the comic, like to the whole thing.
You'll
notice that the
Amanda's
prodigal
very
doesn't.
much a purist. She thinks that she's not, but she is.
I try really hard to differentiate. But you'll notice that where his sigil should be, there's nothing there because he kind of left.
So where is he?
I won't tell you because it does tie into another sibling who is Delirium.
They did mention Delirium at the end.
Delirium's story is kind of sad because they're one of the instances of how the Endless can change, and she's the only one that's changed from what she originally was to what she currently is. It kind of shows you it's interesting to see the personifications of things that make like humanity kind of like humanity, or how like we think things are run, to watch so Delirium used to be delight.
Okay.
But humans got into drugs. There was a lot of wars, politics, stuff like that. And as soon humans weren't happy with things, and it was only momentary. So eventually It drug her
That's
down to
interesting.
being this kind of like whacked out, weird entity. But you'll see them more towards, I think, the middle or the end is when they kind of come into play. But Desire and Dream don't get along.
I got that sense. Yeah.
They've not been friends, and that is because of the woman in hell currently.
Okay. Because I almost got the sense like maybe this was a setup for him to kind of learn these lessons, or these are lessons that he needed to learn. And so I wasn't sure if there was more love, less hate involved in the setup of these things. Almost like a tough love, we're going to put you in this
It's
situation and you're
different
going to have
because
to
you
develop.
get Death, which is love.
Yes,
Death loves
yeah.
all her siblings, and she's there, and she's a very different take on like the whole death stereotype and how she's like okay with her role, but it doesn't mean that it's not sad. She just kind of rolls with the punches. Versus Desire, who's kind of just this. It's part of the twins. You have Desire and Despair, which they changed Despair's design, which is one of the things I had an issue with. Not as greasy as I wanted her to be. She's naked in the comic. She's just
A lot of naked people in the comics. I've
there
heard.
are,
Yeah.
which I was like, this is lacking a certain nudity element.
Lucifer's naked in the comics, right?
Keep costumes.
For the most part, especially in the upcoming one, but I don't think they're gonna, because I think they want to keep the ability to show, because Neil Gaiman presents the angels as being like, non-gendered. So they're flat. They're just flat.
Yeah.
Got it.
So, but
I like how Despair wears Crocs.
I was like, there was a lot when I first saw Despair where she's fully clothed. And I was just like, okay, I can understand some decisions there because maybe we don't want everybody running around naked in the show. Understandable.
Yeah.
But I wanted, so Despair is is literally the embodiment of just depression. Just awful, doesn't take care of herself. She wears her hair up in a messy bun that has rats crawling through it. Her friends are rats. I was very excited about the hook scene in the face because that does happen. She does do that a lot.
Yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah.
She does that. I was like, oh, okay, cool, awesome. But I wanted more greasy,
Why is that her
nastiness.
sigil? If you don't mind, like, why is the hook her sigil?
I don't really know why. They don't explain why the sigils
okay.
are the way that they are. It's just the hook is just.
Because is there a more pathetic animal than a fish, right?
Or I was just thinking
The
Despair
sunfish
gets
is
its
one.
hooks into you and then it's hard to get it out. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
There
Like
you
it
go.
hooks in and holds
Yeah.
on and
That
Yeah,
Very
makes
well
sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Despair can lead
Yeah.
to
Oh, okay.
numerous things.
Okay,
but the
that
rest of
makes
the twins
sense.
is
Okay.
because
Yeah.
of that. But
Yeah.
they always
I
cause
like that.
trouble for Dream.
Yeah. He was. It's okay. You're not really supposed to like him, right? For most of it, because he's kind of a jerk.
He really is, especially when you learn the story of why she's in hell. The woman is in hell. It's literally because she said no.
Yeah.
She said no, and that was it.
I thought it was because, and just like,
No, you're fine.
because when I was reading a summary, I thought it's because she committed suicide.
No.
Oh,
So
okay.
they fell in love. She was the princess of her group.
Of her realm. Is her
Not realm. She was a human.
Okay.
She is a human. She was the princess of an African. I can't think of it. I don't want to say tribe because that's not what it is. It's
Right.
Kingdom.
Clan.
Kingdom, a clan, kingdom. So she was a princess. They fell in love. Dream appears. The endless appear to people the way that, like if you're human, it'll appear as a human, but it'll be in your mind's eye of like what they look like.
So wait, who did
So
she
he
fall
was
in love with?
She fell in love with Dream. And Dream
Morpheus.
fell in love with her, and this is why Desire is kind of on the hit list for Dream. Stop meddling in my affairs. They fell in love, and Dream didn't expect to fall in love with this woman, but he fell so deeply in love with her, he wanted her to come and rule in his kingdom as his queen. And she said no.
Oh.
He didn't like that answer.
So he put her in a cage in hell.
He put her in hell.
Yep.
He was so in love with her that it was like he wanted her to leave her people behind, but she didn't want to leave her people behind because she loved
Yeah.
humanity and she loved her people.
Right.
And she literally was like, I love you, but I don't think I can leave. I don't want to leave. And he was very upset.
So he's very toxic.
He did the child thing, and he locked her in hell for all eternity.
That's the child thing. Interesting.
Wow.
He just
Locking somebody.
non-forgiving. And so when he sees her again, it's like, oh.
See, but the way the show plays it is very different.
Well, because they don't tell you the story at first.
Sure.
Yeah.
They'll tell you in the next area
Okay.
with Lucifer's plot.
Okay.
What Lucifer's going to do with Dream at this point. So.
Interesting.
Interesting.
So, the guy that stole the show for me was, we just said his name, David Thewlis?
Yes.
Yeah.
He stole the show for me. I mean, he was outstanding. And I got to tell you, the diner episode, I was so into that episode. And the part where I was mentioning it earlier, the part where he's in the car with Rosemary was tense. I think those were probably my favorite parts. And I really liked Lyda, although she was a little too nonchalant when she woke up pregnant. I was like, it's a little weird, don't you think? Like, she didn't even have like a moment of panic. It was just like, hey, check it out. You know?
Dream baby.
Well, I think if I kind of, I mean, I understand that because at first when the character shows up, right, I'm like, how did this happen? So, but I think also the fact that if she's communicating with her dead husband in her dreams, and like she is like, yeah, I meet up with him, we're still together, it's in a dream. I think at that point, would pregnancy really surprise you at that point?
No.
I mean, getting that pregnant in a dream is way different than getting that pregnant, right? She's like, Rose, look at me. And she's like, oh. She's like, she's very far along.
I was going to say, she had that baby super quick, too. It was not a 9-month
Rose's
turn.
reaction, she was like, honestly, if I, like, my friend the day before wasn't
I'd be like,
pregnant, I'm like, how did this happen? Even she is, like, very chill. But I guess, you know, she also learns I'm a vortex.
Exactly. So, Rose, I get, does Lyda know at that moment, though, that, like, all that stuff is going on yet?
With the vortex?
With the vortex and all that? Because maybe if she knew that, then I get it. But I didn't think she knew yet.
No, she didn't know until after she got pregnant. She was like, oh.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And so she's still... And I don't think she knew that her husband was actually a ghost yet. I thought she just thought it was a dream.
I think she was aware, because I think they were both hiding, I think, from Dream at that point. So she's aware that he should have moved on.
Well, if you
she might
notice,
have then.
that's why Desire
knew
is such a big part of this whole thing, because Desire brought about the ghost. Because Desire brings you exactly that which you desire, and
Oh, Desire had
Desire was the
something
one
to
that got
do
her
with her and the husband?
yeah,
Oh.
Desire's the reason why she got pregnant. But at the same time, it's technically Dream's child.
Wait.
Interesting. Morpheus.
Because it happened in the dreaming, so therefore...
Wait. So you're,
It's a very
you're telling me
confusing
that
thing.
Lyda's baby is Dream's baby.
He said that. Yeah, it's his baby.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, he
It's
says
Daniel.
that he's going to come back to claim him.
It's Daniel.
Does she know that?
Yes.
He told her.
And what'd she say?
She's very upset about it.
Oh,
She's
I
like,
don't
"He
remember.
ain't
I have
watched this."
no memory of that. I
At
might
the
have fallen
very
asleep
end,
during that part.
basically during the scene when she confronts, like when they find out that he's got to kill her. It's basically in the dream that she's having. He says, "That's my baby. That is an endless child. I'm gonna come back for that one day. You can have it and you can raise it, but one day I'm gonna come back for that
Back
thing."
for it.
And she's just like,
Oh.
And is that the concept of that is that it was created in his world, so he's the source of creation in that world. So
exactly
he
the
would be
vortex, desire, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was a weird. They don't really go into explaining the there's a lot of things like in Sandman that's like that's just such a fantastical thing that it's hard to explain fully how that happens. All you need to know is it is Dream's child, and that child would become very important towards the end.
Oh.
That makes sense.
I'm upset that they didn't tell you the name of the child.
It's Daniel.
It's
right?
Daniel. They didn't
hi.
say it. I was like, say the name. Say the name. I was sitting there at the end of it like, say the name, say the name, say the name, say the name.
What's the Corinthians' name? Because there was a lot
That
about
is his
that.
name.
That is-
Daniel.
No,
No,
the
Corinthians.
The Corinthian's name is the Corinthian.
Oh, that is his actual name?
That is
Yeah.
his
Oh,
name.
I thought there was going to be something bigger.
Dreams aren't the thing about dreams is that like Fiddler's Green, and you know how they all have weird names. They don't have names. They're just a thing.
But why wouldn't he tell Jed his name then? Like I don't understand. Everyone
Because
knew,
the only time you tell someone your name is when you're in trouble.
But everyone knew he was the Corinthian. Like there were blog posts about him.
I don't know what that whole thing was about. The Corinthian has been around for many, many years, unless somebody...
He just didn't want him to call him again. He was like...
I don't know. It might have been from an old file from the beginning of things, like when Dream gets captured. He's the one kind of helping the family out and keeping him there.
Oh, I also think it's because he didn't want Dream to catch on, because Rose is the one who's, I didn't get Dream. He goes, see you soon, and hangs up.
Why don't you just make up a name then? Say my name's Jack.
He's a created thing. His imagination isn't all there. I don't know.
In other words,
they changed
he's a
him
thing,
a bit.
so he's an idiot and doesn't.
He was
sexy.
I liked him. He was one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the issues I had was I thought the ending, like his ending was just a little too abrupt for me.
They added a lot more to him in the series, but I'm not upset with it. Like when he stabbed him in the hand, the Corinthian does not have that much power. The Corinthian is very weak in terms of Dream. Like when he stabs him in the hand, he's like, I'm like, so did they make the knife like a thing that can hurt the Endless? And he's like, oh no. And they're like, oh no, the vortex, that's why. And I'm like, no. But I'm glad that they had his teeth eyes. I'm very excited about that.
That was cool.
I was like, take off the glasses. I'm like, let me see. I'm like,
wow.
And also,
the Corinthian's a weird character, but I enjoy him. I like
Same.
the guy who played him.
Yeah,
He's
same.
like a better Matthew McConaughey, in my opinion, than his mannerisms. I feel like he channeled his inner Matthew McConaughey, but he's
decided to be a
hotter
good
version-
actor too.
But be a good actor at the same time.
Wow.
Well, we're forgetting all about the McConaughey right now. All right, I will not stand for this. Go back and watch The Lincoln Lawyer, Killer Joe.
He's got a very... I think they portrayed his character very well.
Yeah.
He's definitely doesn't have that big of a role in the comics. He doesn't even meet Rose Walker in the comics. That was something added. But it wasn't awful to watch. I was
Did
like,
you kind of feel
okay.
sorry for him because he had big dreams and aspirations?
To murder people. He kind of wanted to take over, and
What
that's
does that stop you feeling sorry for any character?
I know, considering the character.
well, you
Are we forgetting the episode where you listed some of your favorites?
Look, I
and what they
appreciate his
enjoy doing?
dedication to eyeballs. I have a similar thing. I think eyes are cool. And so I was kind
in
of
people's
upset.
heads.
Yeah.
In people's heads.
But he was getting it though. I'm like, he had a good way of getting it. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm like, take my eyes. I'll take them out for you. Here.
Fangirl. No, I
He was
understand.
so handsome. Look at him. He's on the screen. I'm like,
I have the same reaction to Desire. Like when there's that whole
yeah. And I'm like,
when there's that whole scene between when he tells Desire, "I'm coming to see you," and Desire's like, "Oh," and, like I love the actor's voice. And like that whole interaction between Desire and Dream, and the actor who plays Desire, Mason Alexander, they were saying that they were watching that scene with their partner, and the partner was like, "Kiss, kiss, kiss, kiss."
that's what's great about.
Yeah.
I thought he was a perfect pick for that character. Desire can be whatever you want it to be. It can be a woman, it could be a man, it could be anything you want it to be, as long as that's what you want.
Yeah.
And so the character is supposed to be androgynous when you like see them. So I felt the casting for Desire
They
was
did a
perfect.
good job with that.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think there were some fans that were upset though
Why?
that they cast because
He wears
the actor's
he-
non-binary, so I think they had a problem.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking, but the character itself, I know at the time
right.
non-binary wouldn't have been a term, but technically that's
But it was
what the
still a
character
thing.
is.
Ahead of its time.
It's they are, I think in the comic books they are referred to as they.
Yeah,
Because
so I don't
they
really
can
understand.
be
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
It just depends
Yeah.
on who's looking
That's
at
why I
them.
didn't understand why they
So
were
maybe
upset.
someone's
Yes,
looking
yeah.
at Desire on the TV, they're viewing it the way they want to view it. It's
Yeah.
kind of how it works. They
Yeah.
do wear that cat outfit though in the comic book.
I like that outfit. that was cool. They rocked that outfit. But that was such a great interaction. You know, the way they're talking and yeah. So I like that scene. That was one of my favorites. I replayed that a few times. It's so fun.
Anybody else get like a Rocky Horror Picture vibe with just the set for Desire's
Yes.
Yeah.
Desire
lair,
located in
whatever
the
it's called?
heart.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
in the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't like that set too much though.
Oh, I
That's
thought
what
it
it
was
looks
cool.
like in the comics.
Yeah, I liked it.
It's
I
just
underst-
it's inside a person. It's inside them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all they are, and it moves around and it's just,
What's the chair thing supposed to be? I thought it was a tongue. Am I wrong?
you know, I don't really know.
That's kind of what it looked like to me. I don't know.
a blood thing. I don't know. Just kind of there. So, how did you all feel about what's his name, Hob, the immortal?
Oh,
Meets at the
yes.
bar every
I
100
loved
years?
that.
Oh,
yes.
That was also
Yeah.
one of my favorite parts. Yeah.
Yeah.
I very much enjoyed that.
Is Death gonna eventually collect him, or she's
You don't
gonna
know.
say, let's see?
No.
You don't know.
He's gonna live forever.
Yeah.
But that-
Until I have
Until
a
he's-
feeling
yeah.
he's gonna decide he doesn't want to live at some point. Right?
That'll be
It's
so
not
sad,
in the
though.
comics. He
Oh.
just kind of.
Damn,
Yeah.
I was trying to get something out of him. Yeah.
But I felt so. I
not gonna
bet
work.
because when you think about it, when Death and Dream see him, it's like the Black Plague is going on, and he's waxing poetical about life and that he's never gonna die. And Dream looks at him and goes, he's gonna get tired of this. And Death was like, do you want to make a bet? So it's kind of like two immortal beings making a bet on someone, saying you're gonna live forever. I kind of felt bad for him because at first he's enjoying it because he's riding high on the experience. But at a certain point, you start to see it where I think it is taking a toll. And I was just thinking, like, of all the things that you could wish for, would you really want to live forever?
Well, I mean,
Yes.
even when it, right?
Really?
Like,
Yeah.
Well, that's
even-
the whole point
Hands
of
down,
like
yes.
Lestat.
Oh,
Anne Rice's
no.
Lestat is he
I could-
feels the same.
Yeah.
Like
I could not do that.
even during that one century where he was having the really bad century,
Yeah.
even at the end, he was like, I have so much left to live for.
Yeah.
he's very positive.
Yeah.
I guess.
And so much to learn. He talks
Yeah.
about like it kind of, I know this sounds straight, it reminded me of Groundhog Day almost, and kind of like now you take the opportunity to just enrich who you are, and I think once he did that, I think now he's more like stable. Like he's like the next time now we see him, and is it just in my mind? But in my mind, he's a professor. Like was he grading papers?
Yes.
I feel like okay, all right. So like I think like he's evolving also.
It kind of reminds me of the Cullens. I'm going to bring in Twilight.
Why?
How they
No!
they have their graduation caps. Like the whole thing with me though is that living forever, eventually those whom you love die and pass on. You have to constantly form a new identity.
Yeah.
With the modern era, it gets
He's been
harder.
his
There's
son
only
like 5 times.
so much.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say he dealt with that. He
Yeah,
dealt
he
with
did.
losing his
Yeah.
wife and losing his
I
kids.
know,
and-
but I was just thinking, like, at a certain point, it's harder and harder to hide. Like, as technology advances, it's like that there was always be that fear in my mind. Someone's gonna find me, lock me in a place, experiment to figure out why I'm living forever. Like, wouldn't that worry you?
So that's the only reason why you wouldn't wish to live forever.
That's the
So
problem.
not
Yes,
because
as they
of too
explained.
much work to.
They're gonna be like, you haven't changed your passport picture in 500 years.
It's called living off the grid.
No, but still, it's like.
I hide my gold bars in the
No,
ground.
but you form these relationships. You're gonna see people dying. Like after a few centuries, wouldn't that just be too much on you?
Look at it.
Am I the only one that feels?
As the oldest person in the room, I think I start to think it'll drive me crazy to not know how certain stories end or how certain things. I want to know. I want to know what happens, and I know I'm going to have to leave this world not knowing what happens.
You want to know what George R.R. Martin writes in those last two books.
I absolutely do. I
Not if he
absolutely do.
doesn't die.
Yes.
Hey, he's been updating a lot recently, okay? I think Wins a Winner actually on the way in the next year or two.
See, he's an optimist.
I think that's wishful thinking, but
You're not jaded yet. That's good.
He kind of just writes plots and then he goes, this.
Yeah. So that character kind of made me sad. Although I did like the scene when Dream finally makes their appointment and he and you can also see how their relationship has evolved, and he says, "You're late," and like they smile at each other. So that part I did like, but I don't know, like the thought of living forever.
It's not
I
something
don't know.
I would do. I
No.
think I've watched enough vampire movies, and
I know.
Dorian read more than my fair share of 50 billion copies of like Dorian Gray to know that maybe sometimes living forever is not as cool as you think it might be.
I think it'd be funny for like the first extra 100 years, then it'd be like, oh.
It's like, I need to finish this series. Once it's done, I'm over. Continuation. Oh no. It's never gonna end. So.
I did have timeline issues though with that, because he misses that 1989 appointment, and I do really like there's that Don Johnson kind of vibe to what he's wearing. He's got like the T-shirt and that, so I thought that was just perfect. But then does he go every day to the pub waiting for Morpheus to show up?
Every
Like it's
100 years they pick a date.
Sure, but it's not
on that
100
date.
years when they finally meet again. So how did he know he was going to be there? It's like this.
I think a part of him, because when he called him friend, he's like, I think you think of me as a friend. He was like, well, I'll show you how wrong you are. I'm not coming back.
Right.
And then he didn't intentionally mean not to come back.
Yes,
He meant to come back,
Sure.
but he got captured.
Right.
I think that after that point, he stayed every day.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think it was
that's
that
right.
because he
And I-
believed
that he
because
was-
they were friends, he
Right.
would show up
And it's
eventually.
that same optimistic spirit that keeps him wanting to
Exactly.
live also kept
He
him there
wants
to
to
kind
prove
of
him
hopefully.
wrong,
Gotcha.
that they're
Gotcha.
friends, and he wants to
Gotcha.
prove that he's still here.
Gotcha.
And there could be something even going into what Simone was saying. I mean, he did lose people, throughout his centuries alive, except for Dream. Dream was he knew Dream was always going to be there. So, not that would keep him going or keep him alive or anything like that, but it was almost a comfort, I think. And it's not hard to spend every day at a bar.
No, I just had a quick
Especially if you're a
question
people watcher.
about the spell that summoned Dream. Why did it fail and did not summon death?
Right.
That's the part I kind of want a clarification.
agree.
Like, what was it that
The
made
spell was wrong. Is
Oh,
what
okay.
it was.
Okay.
Is that, if I'm not mistaken, I might have to go back and read that part, but if I'm not mistaken, it was just wrong.
Also,
It
why
was very wrong.
does Tywin Lannister have such a young son? Right? Weren't people a little weirded out by that?
Charlie Dance is in this?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, he plays the first guy. He was perfect casting for the
Yes.
bad guy,
Yeah.
like going insane and everything. I was like, oh, it's
I felt sorry for the son because especially the scene when that I guess it's another professor kind of meets, or the doctor meets up at the house, and the magician character explains what he's going to do. He says, because I lost my son, my dear son. It's almost like the other one does not even exist in his mind.
Exactly how Tyrion felt.
Right.
That's what I said.
yes,
I was like, look at him playing
Well,
the
they were
same
talking
role.
about the Game of Thrones reference in the show when another epic scene, which I have to bring up, is when Dream and Lucifer are having their battle, and Lucifer says, "I'm a dire wolf."
Yes.
That is in the comic book.
Yeah, I was gonna bring it up because I know Amanda's like, it came first. That line was actually written first before the first Game of Thrones.
Book?
Yeah,
Well,
dire
dire wolves
wolves are just
No, but I mean,
No,
the
I meant-
Sandman comic book was written before the first Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
the
comic
first
book
Thrones
was
book
made in,
came out in
like,
like the
the
90s,
80s.
right?
Oh, I had no idea when the comic book came out.
Yeah,
Wow.
the comic book came out in like I
Wow.
think the late 80s, early 90s.
But it was such a brilliantly done scene. The way they're like one-upping, it's a war of sort of wits that they're waging. And can we talk
Just
about
funny.
the Demon Lord for a second? The one that actually had his helm.
Which is funny because in the comics, it isn't Lucifer who plays the game with him, it's the demon with the helmet who plays that game with him.
Oh, interesting.
I guess
You
it
have to
would.
say,
They're
though,
trying
I
to
really-
reinforce the relationship and next season's how the relationship between Lucifer and Dream. They're
Well,
trying to show that.
Frankly, I'm glad they did because that
wasn't
demon.
awful.
I don't like to criticize people's hard
She
work.
spoke about the demon.
But that demon kind of looked like, as Lou said, something from Guardians of the Galaxy. Like
Right.
when
Yes.
when that demon shows up, I'm like, okay, show. You had one chance.
The least intimidating demon ever.
No, like, I compare him to the demon that greets Dream at the gate, and that line
Yes,
says, like, there's one at the gate, there's one at the gate. Like, that's an impressive demon. Like, if I were bound for hell and I met that guy, I'd be like, okay, I understand why this is your job. But the freaking Duke or whatever he is, I was like, really? Like, that is so not impressive.
It just shows you every time there's no rhyme or reason. He's supposed to be like pink in the comics. He's this pink spiky guy. That's basically all you get. I'm like, okay.
I don't
Got
know.
a lot to draw.
I like, it's like you could have oomph. There could have been more oomph to that character. And I was not impressed.
And there are like 75 volumes or something to the comic.
No.
Patience.
Of the compilation like books, there's like I think like 12.
Oh, that's
There's
it?
12.
Oh.
And then there's a bunch of side stuff if you ever
And like how
want to read.
exasperated she is. She's like,
How dare you?
No, I was trying to think off the top of my head because
yes.
I have all four of the annotated ones, which
Is he still writing them? No.
No, there were some creators afterwards that did a lot of side work. He wrote other comic books like Black Orchid and a couple other ones that kind of tie into the universe. As I said, my personal favorite is the House of Secrets, although people don't put that in the canon, but it takes place in Cain and Abel's house, and Cain and Abel are kind of the main people in that one.
They were cool too. I
Yes.
liked
They're so funny. I was so happy, but I didn't like that they looked like twins. That was my only qualm, is that in the comics, Cain is a very like skinny, angry little man, while Abel
Two out
is
of
kind
three
of a
ain't bad.
stout, kind man.
I
And
felt sorry for Abel, like, especially, like,
you should.
Well,
and it's
yeah,
really
yeah.
funny because they
Murdered
love
every
each
day.
other. Well, the thing is that the brothers love each other, but every day, Cain murders Abel.
did anyone feel sorry for the gargoyle? Like, when Dream
course.
goes
Yeah.
for that gargoyle, and I was
Yeah.
like, no, take anyone but the gargoyle. Like,
There's no one left.
I was so sad.
I did respect that he asked him. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
he
but it
didn't
was
just
more-
take him. I was
No,
like,
but
oh,
I'm
that's
sorry.
kinda cool,
Like, you're
but-
asking, but
Yeah.
you're exerting your authority. Cain and Abel had no choice. I'm sorry. That's like me saying you're gonna have to do this, but I'm gonna ask you first, just to give you the illusion that you have choice. There was no choice in that matter.
Wow, Simona, you're angry. That was a lot of anger.
It was a pretty
That-
upsetting scene. It
I
was.
was actually just thinking that as a mom, I've kind of been put in that role before, so maybe that's why I was like, oh yeah. Sometimes you're offering a choice that's not really
I
a
know, but I
choice.
just felt so bad. And then, like, when they get their new one, like, I'm
Goldie.
like, I know, but I like how when Abel's running through the list of names, and then Cain gives and just like spears him with the, and I'm like,
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
That's their life. Every day, it doesn't matter what time, he dies and he comes back.
I know, but I like how positive he is. Like, he's talking to Goldie, he's like, he really loves me. He can't help it. He's just angry.
It's because he understands his brother more than anybody else.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. I was like,
It's
can
weird
you
because
imagine
it's like they'll be nice one second, but Cain is always just a grumpy butthead.
Can you imagine eternity with someone who's constantly killing you?
No.
But that's the Cain
It's
and Abel
kind of like
story.
the whole
So-
what is it? The Sabrina, what they did with Sabrina and Zelda. They kept murdering her, and she would just come back anyway.
The Teenage Witch,
Yeah.
Sabrina?
Yeah.
Oh.
In the Netflix,
Oh, I didn't watch
Yeah,
that.
not,
that
not
one,
the
they
original
had a thing where
Sabrina.
she was basically the soil on their land would, as long as if she died, they would just bury her there and she'd come back up.
Oh.
Is that Sally Draper in that one?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I just felt sorry for the gargoyle.
But you'll love Goldie. Goldie stays.
Oh, that's good.
Goldie stays. Goldie's very cute. Big old feet.
Oh,
Big old noggin.
like, I just felt so bad.
And is the helm supposed to be a raven's beak? Like it at first it looked like it was some sort of like an old World War I like mask for an airplane or something. You know, like it had this steampunk
I think
vibe.
that's just a personal design
Okay,
choice.
but then at one point, like the eye and the helm, they kind of. It was somehow associated with the raven's eye, and I was like, "Oh, it's a raven's beak."
I thought it was
But
a
I didn't-
plague doctor mask at first.
I think it's just a design choice.
Okay,
I
right.
don't think there's any rhyme or reason
But
for it
okay.
it
necessarily.
has
Symbolism.
to have some kind of power.
It's kind of, well, he imbued, it's kind of like Horcruxing here. He kind of
Okay.
imbued his power
Gotcha.
into, not himself, but basically himself into like 3 objects.
But what does the mask actually help him do? Like, I'm just curious. Does it help him?
Does
It
he
helps
have-
him maintain. He didn't realize, and I think this was kind of stupid on his part, because after destroying the gem and all his objects, he became more powerful than he ever was. But I think it helps him to locate and to be able to travel through dreams. But that's just a speculation.
Okay.
I don't know exactly. All you know is that these are his 3 items, and once they're destroyed, it's like all his power comes back to him like tenfold, and he's more powerful, and he doesn't realize it until after John has the gem and stuff like that.
I did like that scene where, you know,
In his hand?
He's in his hand. I was
That's
like,
what
oh,
he does in the
that's
comics too.
another-
It's
yeah.
the same scene,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, John is very weird looking in the comics. He's kind of this. He looks like a walking ghoul, kind of like a dead corpse. He's naked too, but he wears like a jacket.
I guess it's just easier than constantly having to change their outfits.
You could ask ask
Crazy.
the artist for it what his rendition of it was. Like, I think one of my least favorite design choices was not giving Dream his black eyes. And there were so many instances where in the first episode, like when he's like he's been released and he's in the chair up in the tower that the kid walks up, they have an homage to the white glare of his eyes. And I was just like, oh, and then they just didn't do that. And I was like, come on, color contacts are a thing.
Yeah, but I've never seen pure black eyes look good in live action.
That's true. They could have had like the little white dot. Also, with Death's design, they had Death's outfit like 100%, like for that time period. Death changes their outfit based on the time period to match what's hip and what's new. Death
I was gonna say, I remember her wearing jeans and like a t-shirt or something.
That's basically all she has. In this time period, because that's the fashion now it's relaxed fashion.
See, if she would have been wearing leggings and maybe like a sport, like a workout bra, that would have
Well,
Had
this
a
was the
Starbucks
90s.
cup
This
or
took place in
something.
the
Yeah.
90s. This took place in like the 80s, 90s. So not in the modern time.
That's true.
so even the show, it's...
Yeah.
Oh, okay, never mind. Completely missed that. Never mind.
So Death has only like a few like noticeable things. Her hair is all over the place, and just like everybody else's in the family, it seems. She always has the ankh around her neck, and she always has like a swirl kind of like makeup. She has like heavy black makeup. Like one's got like the wing on the side, and one's got like a swirl. I didn't see the swirl, and I was just like. I'm like, it's a makeup.
To hell with this show.
To hell with it. I was just like, you couldn't just add like heavy highlighter. And I was just like, that's like a 2-second like add-on. I'm like, you couldn't have. I feel like that was kind of lazy to me. I was like, you just put the makeup on the swirl. That's all you need. There wasn't any. I was like,
That's it.
Amanda,
that's it. Season 2.
Right to them saying if you don't do
Amanda,
this,
I feel
am
like now
boycotting.
you're just really nitpicking.
Look, I was really excited to see Death, and I was excited to see the actress, and I thought the actress did a pretty good job playing Death. But I was like, Death only has like 2 noticeable features, and that's the ankh and the swirl. It never changes. And I'm just like, you couldn't just. I'm like over here as like a person. I'm like, I don't wear makeup or anything, but I've watched my friends put on makeup. 2 seconds. Oh, swirl.
There's any significance behind the eye makeup?
No.
Okay.
I think it was probably just a design choice. I don't think it was like,
It was. I was just
we
like,
forgot.
but every year
Yeah.
that she's there, she has like the heavy like set in the little swirl, and I'm just over here like, couldn't just put it on.
Beggars can't be choosers.
Maybe she'll develop it as they
Right,
go along.
That would be nice. Yeah.
I did
She'll
like.
be like, I saw people using makeup. And that'll be a character development thing.
That whole episode, though, I was
She's been around
bawling.
for years. I think she knows what
Oh.
makeup is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she lives in the 80s. where heavy makeup was a thing back then.
Yeah,
so.
but like a year for these people must feel like a second for us. You
See,
know?
but nothing about
That's
her
true.
outfit screamed 80s, though.
No,
It's
there
because
was-
it's late
no
80s, early
Capesios.
90s.
Yeah.
So the comic book is like kind of drawn in grunge fashion. So her outfit is usually kind of like grunge, like relaxed grunge is what I would call it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Alright.
She just looks good for the time versus the 80s where she did have like big ol' hair and
Gotcha.
she had like the jacket.
With the really high shoulder pads.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did have that. And so it depends. She matches the time. She always
Yeah.
matches the time.
Death is
So-
definitely like my favorite character.
She's the one people write the most about. She
Yeah.
has her own separate comic book. She had a manga, which I have.
So that was cool for me because again I knew nothing about this going into it, so the whole time especially in the first 5 episodes when they're talking about like death and desire and everything like that, I was like, oh, I should Google to see if there's other like if he branched off the comic books and wrote their own comic books about them,
Only
and then
death.
little did I know that they were all included in this one, which makes sense.
Disappointment is a part of life.
No, I wasn't disappointed.
Oh,
I was
okay.
happy.
So
It's okay, Lou. You can say
Death only got her own standalone. Nobody else got a standalone.
Yeah.
Death is always the fan favorite.
You want to make
He's
Death
okay.
happy.
Of course, naturally.
She's cool.
Yeah.
She's cool. I love Dream.
Like Laura mentioned, I loved the episode where they go
Yeah.
on their little walkabout, and I loved how the victims that she first chooses are sort of victims that you would feel sympathy for. And I'm going to clarify what I mean by this. So it's like the old man playing the violin, then it's the baby.
that one made me cry a little
I
bit.
know,
I was like,
but
that
it-
one always gets me.
But what I loved is that she shows, because in death, everyone is equal. And the way she treats, like when she goes to the woman who died of the overdose, and it starts off where the people she's getting they have homes. With the episode of the baby, they've lived full lives. And then she goes to that young woman who's off from like the freeway in a tent someplace.
Right.
And
the
then
homeless woman.
Homeless.
yeah, and then she goes to the man that's been shot and killed, but everyone is equal. She gives them the same respect and the same compassion, which is what I appreciated in that episode. It was very beautifully done, the way she goes to each and every person. And one of the sadder moments is she goes back to the guy that's sort of hitting on her in the beginning of the episode, and she says, "Don't worry, we'll meet again."
Yeah.
And her final reaping, or the final, is that guy says, "I almost got hit by that car," and she was like, "Yeah," and you know,
Yeah.
but it was a well done episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
really beautifully done.
And I kind of like the idea that death walks among us, and you know, you maybe I've said see you later, and she's like, oh yeah, you will, you know,
Yeah.
like someday, unless you know I can negotiate my way out of that. But yeah,
Like a little bit more time, please.
Yes.
You can play. I think there, if I'm not mistaken, in the comics there is someone who does play this game with death. Well, technically, Hobb played the game with death as well. She's the reason why he's not dying. But I think there's one that's supposed to be like the side one where she goes to see them. And the person is just so like gross to look at, and she still treats them with like love and respect like everybody else, because as she says, it's like, you know, death is scary for everybody, but
like-
you know, you can greet everybody with, you know, a smiling face and put them at ease.
Yeah.
So
It's like that old saying, "Death is the great equalizer."
and she certainly is, even with her family, and to a certain extent.
Yeah.
and I do like that she drove home. I think that the point that even Constantine started to make to Dream, which was that they're here for us. You know what I mean? Like they think we need them, but they need us just as much, that we give them purpose. And I kind of felt like he definitely got that from his afternoon, and maybe then could open his himself up to being friends with Hobb, you know, and
Yeah.
actually acknowledging that it was a friendship. So
And I think also, like, what happened to Delirium should have been a clue, too. Basically, how the entire aspect of one of his siblings was changed based on how humanity changed. And I was almost thinking of the idea that belief is what keeps them going. And should someone almost, stop, like, not that you could ever really stop dreaming, but at a certain point when the dreaming sickness occurred, when he, like, sort of came out of commission, how much that impacted both worlds. Like, his world was, it's not like his world was not affected by what happened. Both worlds impacted one another. So both cannot exist. It's sort of like Voldemort and Harry. Both cannot exist without the other. Yeah, so that was really, I think that was a lesson that Dream needed to learn. Like, I love how Death says, okay, stop moping, stop feeding the pigeons, wake up. But one thing I will say, though, is like,
Dream to wake up. How dare you?
I know, but I like how Death says, didn't you think we would have been concerned? But did any of the siblings try to find out what happened to him? So
Destiny doesn't intervene because he can't.
Yeah.
Destiny is a character you'll meet, and he just has a book, and he knows everything. Everything that will happen because it's written down. So he can't go against it because
He's Destiny.
He's Destiny and he can't do it.
Yeah.
It's like he's like it's already written down. You can't do it.
He could have given people a heads up.
He can't. He's not allowed to intervene in any way. He's the
What's
oldest.
the point of being Destiny then?
He's kind of a boring individual. He can't. He's powerless. He can't really do anything. He's probably the most powerful one at that point because he knows everything that will happen is currently happening and stuff like that.
He's the one at the dinner table where they're like, "Oh yeah, and then I'm gonna go do this after
Why don't
work
you put your
tomorrow."
book away?
And they're like, he's like, "No, that's what you're doing."
He's like, you're not supposed to be getting up right now. He's interesting. He's just kind of a cloaked guy. That's basically all.
So he's excused. What about the other ones? Well, we know Desire doesn't care.
Delirium is with her brother, or doing whatever she does.
Who's her brother?
Destruction.
Oh, okay.
They're all technically siblings. They all call each other brother and sister, but
Okay.
Delirium and Destruction had a very close relationship.
Oh,
That
and
when-
Destruction is the prodigal son.
the product.
So see, like I thought that the prodigal son was gonna be Lida's kid, Daniel, but no.
No, because then his name would be Destruction.
Maybe he grows up to be Destruction. With the timelines all over the place.
Destruction's kind of like
In dream worlds, things
Destruction kind of went to the human world, and he's kind of living his best life, just
Oh, yeah.
off the radar.
happen.
He's a red-headed woodsman who doesn't like his role, and so he doesn't want to destroy things.
Oh.
He just wants to live a life. He's the most human-looking because he's actually like, he's like Caucasian-skinned and everything versus like deathly white as everybody else. He actually looks like the most human. He doesn't have black hair. He doesn't have the pale white skin. He's
Doesn't
just
look like he doesn't have enough nutrients in his body. Like,
he got out into the sun a bit. He's good. He's like a big old lumberjack looking guy.
I was just gonna ask, did he want to be a lumberjack?
No, he just wants to live a quiet, simple life without having to hurt things.
I was trying to make a reference to Monty Python's I don't care. Exactly, but no one got it, so
I had the
I've
song
never
playing in my
seen
head
Monty
when you
Python.
say it.
what?
I've never watched Monty Python, so I would have never got the reference anyway. So I'm
November, you're watching.
Yeah.
Got it. Listed. So.
I thought it was interesting that he says to Death, they weren't summoning me, and she's like, I know. And he's like, they were summoning you, and she's like, yeah, why don't you take your shoes off? And he's like, what? No, it grounds you, like she totally distracts him.
But think
Yes,
about it
yeah.
though. Can you imagine your two siblings say, listen,
Yes.
I was in prison for 100 years, but they really wanted you. Like, how
Yes.
would that conversation go?
Yes, yeah.
Like, if you're heartless, you'll say, I got lucky.
Yeah.
Like, I would probably say the same thing. Let's go for a donut or something. Take off your
Yes,
shoes and
yeah.
fill the grass.
Look, something shiny.
Right.
I know. It's like,
That man needs to take his shoes off, his nice leather boots off.
I just felt so bad. He's like, they wanted you. Like, I was
Yes,
just like,
yeah.
yeah, so let's go take a walk.
yes.
I do have to say though, I love their dynamic as siblings.
Yeah.
And although I didn't really necessarily like the show, only because it's not something that I would naturally gravitate towards, and I really don't know all that much about it, so it's a little hard for me to watch it, but I do really like their dynamic as siblings. Yeah.
Well, they are setting up for the next season, which is supposed
Oh,
to be
yeah,
the
definitely.
best comic book.
yeah,
the best
they
one,
definitely were.
which will involve all sorts of mythology, Christian mythology, Norse mythology, Chinese mythology, Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology.
Wow.
A lot of
I won't
mythology.
spoil what happens because as a fan, I try not to be a purist, but I highly enjoyed. I tried so hard.
Joe and Lou was like, no.
And they did make a couple changes. I think my least favorite thing about this season was Joanna Constantine.
Your least favorite thing?
She was my least favorite thing. First off, I love
liked
John
her.
Constantine. To which I felt like when I was introduced to Johanna, I felt like they tried to combine both Lady Joanna from the past and John Constantine as one character. And I didn't like that because I liked him in the comic books of him being this, blonde-haired, apathetic, kind of like, I've seen some kind of guy. And it's like the story does go about the same. About, like, he has to go to his ex-girlfriend who's, like, deteriorating because of the sand and stuff like that. It's the same plot, just the character itself. I did not... I was a little like, and then they showed Lady Joanna later on, and it was the same actress, and I was just kind of like...
Well, that was in case you missed the connection.
Yeah, and so I was just kind of like, I was like, this was the one thing I would change, is just bring John Constantine. He's already an established DC character, so just bring him back.
I didn't mind her being in it, and I had no idea Constantine was like part of this world. But like,
that's why the DC heroes.
I've seen
kind of-
the Keanu Reeves one.
Why they changed it though, because like,
probably.
Like Constantine sort of has popularity on his own as like a character.
He does.
So
Also
I feel like
available
they
on
might have
Netflix.
just wanted. It's kind of like having Batman show up.
It was a Neil
in an
Gaiman
unrelated
change.
series.
Neil Gaiman changed the character to that. It wasn't so much Constantine's popularity, because I know that was the big qualm people had with the series, was Joanna. And it's just on fact of how she's written. And Neil Gaiman made the decision to, I'm just going to rewrite it to be Joanna Constantine. And it wasn't so much the DC output of the whole thing, like of the character.
Yeah,
It
but
was
I'm
his
just
own
saying
personal
that might have
change,
been a motivating factor to make to change that. So it's just
Sure, I
like you
could
don't
see
have
that.
the baggage of random
Yeah.
Constantine fans coming in.
Yeah.
That's true, because now that Lucifer's
Yeah.
been introduced as well, the Netflix Lucifer, the one they ended, is technically a side story of the Sandman.
Oh yeah.
He
You
makes
liked
it-
that, right?
I did.
And
I
it has
really
to do
liked
with
that.
season
Unexpectedly
2.
like that. Yeah.
That will come out, and what happens to Lucifer there.
I'm currently watching that show because my friend Crystal
But it's
loved
supposed to
it.
be
Did you know
but they
that
make it
that was
standalone.
connected to
Yeah,
this?
I figured.
So,
I mean, I kind of did. I hold them separate in my mind, but I mean, I think he wrote both, right? Didn't he?
He
Or,
did. It
Yes.
was-
Yeah.
Oh.
no,
Or no?
I think he
Oh,
consulted.
Oh, maybe that's okay.
The Lucifer comics were like kind of like a little crimey thing, but
Yes,
not as
yeah.
big as what they did in the TV show.
And
So-
I think there's echoes of things like just the notion of the human elements to these figures that we thought were otherworldly. You know what I mean? Like that is very similar.
It's a study
but-
of humanity. It's
Yes,
watching Dream throughout the entire comics. That's what makes Dream such an interesting character, is we meet him as kind of a blank slate. And he's just kind of like set in his ways, but the more that like death like dragged him on their journey, the more he meets up with Hob, the more he encounters problems and listens and starts listening to like Lucien or Lucien.
I was gonna
Sorry.
say shout out to Lucien also.
Yes.
She
Lucien.
really
Go like
held the dream world together for 100 years.
And she's a librarian.
Yes.
And
yeah.
she's a librarian.
She's the librarian.
Exactly.
The only-
Librarians save the world. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, and you have Lucien. I forgot my train. Yes, in which he she's telling him, "Hey, that's not how it happened. No, you're wrong. He was a king, and that's what he was, and he ruled. No one opposed him, and then
was
he
a
left,
brat.
and he had nobody. Now he has to bring everybody back, and now he needs to figure out that." Maybe change does happen, but it also reflects that change doesn't happen in a day.
Right.
Change takes time, especially for a being that is endless. So it's like trying to get an old horse to drink.
Yeah.
But sometimes it'll learn.
Yeah.
And he becomes way more likable throughout the series until, the finale.
And he becomes unlikable again?
No.
Oh.
That's setting us up to be.
Well, final thought. I just, this is probably not a show I would have watched on my own.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. I think I really enjoyed every episode. Like I said, I thought the ending was a little anticlimactic, but I get that they're setting up for
They're setting up
more.
a lot, and I'm
Mhm.
really fingers crossing that they don't.
So we'll wrap it up.
I
You're trying to damp down the purist in you that.
as someone who tries not to be a purist, they did a really good job. And I absolutely loved watching it. Every week, they added little things. But the little things didn't bother me this time around. Because I understand what they're trying to get towards. And as a comic that was written kind of a while ago, to update it a little bit to fit more of a modern scope, this was not horrible. This was actually very well done. They kept some lines from the comics. They kept true to a lot of their characters. Normally, I'm not someone who likes the changing of the way of a character. Like Lucien was Lucien. He literally looked like a goblin man, like in the comics to me. But the actress who played Lucien was great. Had a good air about her. She played the character correctly. I thought it was great. I thought the casting was very well done. The characters looked like what they looked like in the comic books, and even if they didn't, they tried to make the effort. Like Rose Walker's hair has the rainbow in it. That was a touch that was in the comic book as well. She's supposed to be like a blonde-haired girl with like kind of like these little rainbow hints of rainbow, and they've added the rainbow into her hair
cool.
as well. And I thought it was great. I was like, oh. There's the character. I remember this character. I think I would have, with the Rose Walker, as you said, it wasn't as interesting, and it's really not. It's kind of a fever dream of a book, that one, and she doesn't have. A lot of things were changed in that one, but I didn't think they were awful because they were trying to establish relationships with Dream that will become greater later on. So as far as this one, I give it an A.
Oh,
This was an A adaptation for me. I was very concerned. I think the fantastical elements I had issues, like that I was going to have issues with, as I told Lou and like Joe, I was like, I think Sandman should be like an animated thing. Because there's just too much, like his kingdom, the characters. But when I saw Merv the pumpkin guy, the janitor, he's a fan favorite. I was absolutely...
Mark Hamill.
Was it Mark
It was Mark
Hamill?
Hamill. Of course, yeah.
Aw,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I was so like, I was so happy he was just in it. I thought the graphics for his design were great. I thought Dream's Realm looked amazing. The costume designs were good. It's an A. I look forward to new fans coming in and having like, the whole collection is checked out currently. I tried to bring it up here to show. I had it on display downstairs for read before you watch, and it's all gone.
Cool.
So I'm excited to see what people think of the next chapters, how they feel about the end, if they're interested in knowing more about side stories that are great because you just want more. I really look forward to seeing more appreciation for this Neil Gaiman's magnum opus, as I would like to think it is. So.
Cool.
Yeah, I came into this like I have no experience with the comics. I think I started reading one of them, but I will definitely try to pick it up again. But the show, like I enjoyed the world building of the show. I enjoyed the look of Dream's Realm. A lot of great characters, a lot of great development, excellent relationships between the characters. So I do look forward to season 2. I want to see what happens because Lucifer has big plans.
And fancy hair.
Yes. So
I couldn't stop looking at the hair.
yeah, so I'm definitely curious to see what happens next.
Yeah, I mean, I came into this with no context at all, and I tried watching it, and it just didn't grab me at all. There were certain characters that I did like, that I enjoyed watching, but I think I would enjoy the comic books a lot more than the series. And then maybe once I read the comic books and then watch the series again, I think I would enjoy it a little more.
It gives you more context,
Right.
and Dream is a very complicated. The comic books are a bit complicated as well, just because of as you said, like the continuity of it feels like a dream.
Yes.
And that's kind of what it's supposed to imitate. You're following dream, and it's all done through like a narration, like a storybook narration. So
Yeah. I came into this looking for an excuse to not do laundry and ended up binge watching like over the entire weekend. So mission accomplished. It definitely left me wanting to know things like thinking who's the prodigal, and so I definitely will be looking at next season.
Cool.
And, yeah. And thank you for letting me sit in.
Thanks for playing us.
yeah.
What about you, Lou?
He said.
Oh, he did. Oh, he gave his opinion.
Sorry.
So with that, put the books on hold. Check them out. If you want to know more about, side stories, if you've read it already and you're looking for more, come talk to me. Answer in the comments. I'll always look at the comments. I'll give you my recommendations. I love the Sandman and all its universes, so I hope you guys will enjoy it too. And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.